and we're recording. So, what is AEBG TAP? I know you know what AEBG is. TAP is the Technical Assistance Project. It's funded through the AEBG office, and the contract holder is the Sacramento County Office of Education. They have partners in the grant, and three of the partners, not all of the partners, but three of the partners are American Institutes for Research, which is and will be responsible for professional development related to instruction, curriculum, and leadership. CASAS, who you may already be familiar with, who will focus on supporting you for accountability and assessment, the things that you need to do there, and OTAN, which provides professional development on all different kinds of technology integration. So that's who TAP is. What is AIR? American Institutes for Research is actually a large international research and technical assistance organization. So they have multiple contracts with different education providers in other areas, health and social science. And so we are also in adult education in California and partnering with SCOE, Sacramento County Office of Education, for the AEBG TAP project, and very happy to be here. So what we'll provide through this project is professional development related to instructional areas for different program areas, curriculum alignment and student services for transition, supporting transition, which is a part of which we'll be talking about today, and supporting learners to be college and career ready, and also leadership training to support your consortium leaders in leading you in the many different things that you are working on doing. So today is under the umbrella, we're talking at curriculum alignment today, but it's under the umbrella of accelerated learning. So federal funding asks us to provide services that accelerate the educational and career advancement of our learners. So you're going to hear, if you haven't already, a lot about career pathways and career advancement, and also accelerated learning. So that's one place that it's coming from. And under accelerated learning, sometimes when people talk about accelerated learning, they're thinking about things that we do in the classroom to help learning happen faster. But how we're thinking about it is a little bit broader than that. So I'm just going to give you kind of an overview of all the different things that might be under the umbrella of accelerated learning. And then we'll focus in on the one that we're talking about today. So the first area of acceleration is accelerating the pace of learning. So that could be compression of learning, which would be things like making the timeline of the course more amount of instruction in a shorter period of time by offering it more days or making the courses longer, or adding an online element to a face-to-face course, which allows the learner to master more content in a shorter period of time, or adding short-term courses and boot camps and things like that. I forgot where I was clicking. Customization would include things like modifying the class schedule to meet the needs of learners. So if somebody's working during the day, or they have two jobs, they're working day and night, maybe we would start offering classes on Saturday mornings or Sunday nights or Friday nights, or times that we traditionally haven't offered classes but that meet the needs of our demographic that we're serving. We might also be modularizing content. So if I come in to auto mechanics and I already know everything about tune-ups, that wasn't a good topic for me to choose as an example. But anyway, if I already know a lot of the content, I don't have to take every module. I can just take the modules that I need. And also assessing knowledge at intake helps us customize so that we know what the person already knows and what is it that they need to know. The other area under accelerating the pace is contextualization, and you'll be hearing a lot about that, I'm sure, if you haven't already. Contextualization is like teaching the content of a career pathway. So if somebody wants to be a CNA or an LVN or an RN, the basic skills that they're learning, the content of it would be related to the industry or the job that they're preparing for. Implementing IET with a basic skills instructor and a content instructor or a CTE instructor in the same classroom is one example of that as well. And also integrating career awareness. Comprehensive support services are another area where we can really help people come in and meet their goals more quickly. Streamlining the enrollment process might be one thing that we look at. Connecting students to career pathways that we mentioned, and also providing case management and support services. And if we don't do that as education providers, maybe we can partner with other community organizations or other agencies that do that to work together. Another area we might look at is providing incentives. Sometimes people, adults have a lot of responsibilities and sometimes a lot of barriers to education, and it helps to have incentives along the way. So one way to do that is to implement a cohort model so that you're with the same group of people going through, let's say, your 18-month training program and taking a series of courses. You have people that you get to know and bond with and care about whether you're there or not. That really helps people stay persist in meeting their goals. Also offering jobs like work-study jobs in the related field or intermediate certificates or badges, another incentive to continuing. And the last area that we could look at is aligning programs. So aligning curriculum is one of those possibilities. Adding bridge courses is another. So I'm sure a lot of you are doing both of these already. And also looking into co-locating services. So maybe we can have college courses on the adult education campus, or we can have adult education courses at the Career Center. Today, of course, we're going to focus on aligning curriculum. So this is language from AB 104, which is our implementing legislation for the consortia. And that bill asks us to provide approaches that accelerate a student's progress and also to align academic standards and curricular programs across entities. So I know you're aware of that, you've heard that, and that's why you're here today, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So that was my little introduction, and now I'm going to introduce you to two people from the Education to Career Network of Northern San Diego County, Suzanne Sebring from Palomar College and Kathleen Porter from Poway Unified School District, Poway Adult School, who have worked together in their consortium on a curriculum alignment project. So I am now turning the mic over to Kathleen and Suzanne.
Well, thank you, Marian, and hello, everyone. This is Kathleen, and I just wanted to give a little shout out to Suzanne because just yesterday she was named the Director of Occupational and Non-Credit Programs for Palomar College, so that's a new title for her. And she's been the Palomar representative to our consortium for the last year and a half, so this is a well-deserved title for her. And so she and I have been working together since the time that she was named as the representative from Palomar, so again about a year and a half. And during that time, our consortium has done a lot of great stuff. And so we're excited to be able to share our curriculum alignment project with you this afternoon. So the plan we have in place over the next 45 or 50 minutes or so, we really have three things that we wanted to do with you. First of all, we want to give you an overview of the curriculum alignment project that we have developed. And so you'll see those handouts if you're just joining us. We've got some handouts on the side that you should be able to download. And some of those will be things that you can use in your own consortium as you do curriculum alignment work. And then we're going to give you an opportunity to discuss and share with one another a little bit about your own efforts. And then finally, we're going to wrap up and close. And so that's what we have planned this afternoon. Our objectives, we hope you're going to learn about our project. We hope you have the opportunity to analyze potential benefits and pitfalls of other similar efforts, and then explore how you might implement some of these curriculum alignment elements in your own consortium with your curriculum alignment work. And so we wanted to start out just getting to know you all a little bit better. And so first of all, I'm going to change our slide here. Up in the upper left-hand corner there, we're hoping you could just take a poll and let us know what have you done with curriculum alignment so far. So we're kind of gauging what your experience might be. Going to give you a couple of seconds to complete that. Okay. I know a couple people are still chiming in here. You should be able to see the results as we go. We've got 55 participants on the webinar, it looks like, today, so not everyone's taking the poll. But it looks like the majority of us so far are planning, but we haven't started implementing yet. We've got a few people who are experts, and we've got some who are piloting in some courses and some people that haven't yet started. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next thing we were hoping you could do to tell us a little bit about you. And that is just to tell us what you want to learn. So when you said, hey, I want to attend this webinar this afternoon, what was it that you were hoping to learn? If you can just type in the I want to learn chat pod right next to the poll, that would be great. I see multiple ones of you are typing. So it looks like, Kristen, you want to hear from people with experience so you can avoid some pitfalls in the future. That sounds wise. Burr, you're hoping to learn a little bit about how colleges count enrollment for AEBG. Alice is interested in adult education curriculum integration. Sharon, you're looking for examples that have already been implemented. Perfect. Tom is looking for integrating ESL learners into adult secondary transition courses. What other programs are implementing curriculum alignment? Jody wants to learn some tips and tricks to effective course alignments. Jacques is hoping to get some ideas about narrowing the alignment focus and using a sound process. And Kasia wants to learn about how districts are coordinating the non-credit and credit sides of programs. Okay, best practices regarding acceleration and alignment. How to align when some schools use textbooks as their curriculum. Okay, that came from Sylvie. And then Sharon is looking at pathways between non-credit and CTE credit programs. And Lori is appointed 5 months ago and is just hoping to learn some new things, which is awesome. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so I think we're going to be able to cover a lot of what you were hoping to learn, and I think if there are ideas here that we don't have a chance to touch on, I'm hopeful that we'll have a little bit of time for questions at the end. And then I do know that this is the first in a series of webinars, and so there may be ways for us to follow up on some of the ideas that we may not cover fully today. So I'm going to bring us back to our presentation here. And so as Marion mentioned earlier, all of these things sort of fit in as we talk about curriculum alignment. It really fits into a much larger framework. And so we're seeing that curriculum alignment fits into our work with career pathways. We know it fits in with acceleration. And it also fits into this idea of articulation. And so one of the things that, one of our learnings really was that articulation can be the outcome of an alignment process. And a course can be articulated for either placement or for credit. So just something to kind of keep in mind as you go through this process. So this is a model that I'm sure some of you are familiar with. This was produced by CLASP, the Center for Law and Social Policy, and it really represents the entire career pathway process and highlights what CLASP identified as 3 key elements of quality career pathways. So the first element is this idea of having a well-constructed, transparent, inclusive of education, training, credentials, and support services. The second element talks about having multiple entry points for both well-prepared students and targeted populations. And then the third element is also to have multiple exit points, because some students we know will want to get in, get out, get a job, and then come back to school as they go through the career pathway process. So as Marion mentioned in her introduction, curriculum alignment is an acceleration strategy in that it gives credit to students for prior learning or for learning that they may have learned at another institution. So I also see curriculum alignment fitting into all 3 of these elements. So if members of a consortium are working on curriculum alignment, they're certainly working on this well-connected and transparent idea. So they know what each other offers, and then they're able to help students successfully navigate through members' programs and successfully transition. And then, as you're aligning curriculum, you're also defining entry and exit points, which gives us that idea of multiple entry and multiple exit points. So the next thing that we wanted to talk about is just a little bit about the Education to Career Network. So that's what we call our consortium. And we have 6 members in our consortium. We have 2 larger adult schools, we have 1 community college, and we have 1 medium adult school, and then 2 very small adult schools. Our region covers about 2,500 square miles and includes rural areas served by other K-12 districts that don't have adult education programs of their own. So that's a little about us, and now Suzanne's going to talk a little bit more about our specific curriculum alignment project, and I'm going to chime in from time to time. So Suzanne, are you ready?
I am ready. Thank you, Kathleen. Okay, moving along, I want to talk a little bit about what we did through our consortium. And this slide discusses the curriculum alignment project that our consortium began last summer. And we did this project to help ensure pathways and seamless transitions for our students. We accomplished this by engaging stakeholders, including members of administration, faculty senate, instructional planning council, and all of the impacted areas. So that included ESL, English, math, reading, and career technical education programs of the college and the adult schools within our consortium. So we shared our vision and we solicited feedback and ideas for strengthening our implementation plan with the larger group, and then adjusted our scope of work based on that collaboration. Some things we considered were time of year that would garner the best participation, what day of the week worked best for meetings, and things like that. For our extensive group, Fridays ended up being the day that worked the best. We also decided to rotate our meeting locations in order to ensure an equitable and collaborative environment for all of our participants. And why did we do it? Well, the Curriculum Alignment Project was created to ensure a smooth transition between the adult schools, Palomar College, and the workplace to the benefit of all of our students. And this is in direct alignment with the mission and vision of our consortium. How did we do it? Through a series of meetings over the summer, close to 40 faculty members from 5 adult schools and Palomar College were divided into their discipline teams to examine courses in detail. Using uniform templates, which we're going to share with you later, they were able to document which of their courses were similar enough in content, competencies, and skills learned to be declared aligned. So this would allow for the easier transition for students from one adult school to another, and for students to enroll in Palomar as well. In the end, we created a matrix displaying which courses and from which educational institutions were aligned, and that prevented students from having to retake classes. If they took one at Poway Unified and they had an aligned curriculum in Escondido, they could move along and continue with their educational path without wasting time or having to repeat. So it gave them more geographical choices. We had weekly meetings, including our kickoff meeting and 3 additional work group meetings. As we said, participants were divided into discipline teams. We had the uniform templates. The teams compared their content competencies in major projects and assessments. And where the gaps existed, the teams determined where gaps existed and started working on some curriculum to fill those gaps, and also took notice of where students tended to drop off and not continue with their programs. And the teams worked on developing solutions to those issues. So I wanted to share some of the forms and templates that we used. This first form was used as a first step for faculty to complete the individual course worksheet, and they did this for each one of their courses. The original idea was that they would do this ahead of our first meeting and come prepared, but that didn't end up happening for everyone. And we realized doing this that it probably would have been a better idea to have our kickoff meeting assign this kind of as a homework prior to coming back for the second meeting so that everyone was really ready and on the same page when we started into the bulk of the project. Next, when districts found aligned courses, they used this course alignment form. Then they created this course alignment chart indicating for each school where their courses were aligned. And this resulted in a matrix that could be used by students and faculty and staff to determine where a student stood in their educational sequence when moving from one school to another. For instance, as illustrated here, it was determined that high beginning ESL at Escondido Adult School and Palomar College were aligned with NESL 303 at Poway. So a student and the faculty staff would know exactly where a student was coming from another institution. One thing that we did is all districts compensated our faculty for the curriculum alignment work. And this status report just was used for agencies to track their faculty's participation and assist in creating their compensation or NOHEs that we use at the college to pay the faculty for this work. So we did have some obstacles. The largest challenges were with English, reading, ESL, and math. And even though alignment was easy between the adult schools, it was definitely more difficult to align between the schools and Palomar. Getting faculty to kind of understand the importance and the objectives was an issue. Overcoming the mindset that alignment is possible. Some of the college faculty didn't believe it. They didn't think that there was alignment with the adult schools and that articulation wasn't something that was going to happen. Setting dates and times that worked was really important. And reading, ESL, and math at Palomar, they all understood the importance of the alignment, and they concentrated more on working with the adult school counterparts to, at the very least, understand where the gaps were and work on ways to close those gaps. So now Kathleen's going to talk about some of the successes and the project results.
Yeah, so some of the things that we just stumbled on, some things that we did right. So here, this is the tips and tricks portion of the program, I think. The first three things that I was going to talk about really kind of set us up for success. We allowed faculty to opt in, so we did not say you must do this. As Suzanne mentioned, we did compensate staff, so we had some of our consortium funds that went specifically to each entity so that they would be able to pay their teachers to participate. We also hired a neutral facilitator. So we brought in a consultant, a guy named James Hayes. So many of you in San Diego County may know James. And he was somebody who had worked both in community colleges and in K-12 districts. And so he was a perfect person to kind of facilitate this work for us. And then we, with James's help, created those uniform templates that Suzanne just outlined. So everyone kind of knew the end game going in. And it helped us to really address what those entry and exit skills were for each class, and then alignment became a lot easier. Some of the results or the successes that we had here, increasing awareness and understanding of programs, and just starting dialogue among faculty members really helped us in terms of creating this sense of community, a collective within our consortium, because we have been used to working in silos in most areas previously. We also, the conversation, we were very joyful about this, actually moved from alignment to official articulation. And so as we talked about earlier, when we were talking about articulation, there are two possible outcomes. One is to give credit to students for prior learning. So that would be the college credit. The other outcome was really just to help us place students in higher level courses based on the alignment that occurred between the adult school and the community college. And then finally, of course, we were able to discover gaps and create some of the bridges. Suzanne was talking about some of the areas where we had a lot of difficulty, and I think by far and away the CTE courses were probably the easiest to align. I think our CTE instructors were maybe more practiced at discussing competencies and outcomes for courses, and so it was something that wasn't as foreign for them to talk about. So some more results here. We talked about increasing articulation, increasing transitions between and among programs, and then increasing collaboration and respect among the institutions. And in the end, over 110 individual courses from 8 separate disciplines achieved alignment with one or more course in either another adult school or with Palomar College. So this created 46 multi-course alignments where we had at least 2 or more courses aligned across the consortium. So we were really, really happy with our first effort. And so, Suzanne, you're going to talk a little bit about what are we going to do now. So what's next for us?
All right. Well, the good news is math and reading are totally on board with team meetings now. For example, one of Palomar's math faculty has just been a star. She's sharing curriculum, textbooks, everything, so that Vista and Poway adult schools could create classes that will not only close the gap for students transitioning, but will also be so identical that alignment will be automatic and articulation should be a slam dunk on those as well. The math team has also decided on a common math textbook for beginning algebra, and that kind of addresses maybe one of your comments, Sylvie, earlier, and how do you align when some people are using textbooks and some aren't? Well, they've gotten together and they've decided, well, this is a textbook that we can use, and they've shared their curriculum. The college has shared with the adult schools so that everybody could really be on the same page. We've also, we're creating an intermediate algebra course at Vista, Poway, and Escondido Adult Schools, and this course will align with Math 60, which is, in most cases, Palomar's first credit-bearing math course for students that are interested in obtaining their AA degree. And once created, then articulation will be applied for. So that was a big plus as well. We are able to measure effectiveness, comparing test scores across our schools, collecting student and educator feedback. Follow up with transfer students on their ease of transition is something we are currently working on as well. And then we will be monitoring the career and post-secondary outcomes through some of our data tracking. Another thing that was helpful is we expanded the project beyond those who participated in year 1 and are continuing it on. As I talked about already, the new course that is in development to address the gaps. We have targeted support to address the stop-out point. So when we notice that there is a kind of a point that students were getting to and tended to be not continuing, we are trying to address that and make sure that that is not a barrier. And one of those barriers was the math. They had too many, when they got to Palomar, they had too many courses that they were having to take, remedial courses, prior to being able to take a credit-bearing course. And it would be frustrating and discouraging for the student because it would, they were using up a lot of time and energy doing courses that weren't going to be able to be transferred. Another thing that James Hayes, who Kathleen had mentioned, did was he shared Palomar's Summer Bridge flyer with all of the adult school faculty, and that's one way to also help close those skill gaps. Summer Bridge is something that's offered at Palomar, allowing students to review English, ESL, and math in an accelerated summer format. And it has the potential then to increase placement, which will accelerate their educational pathway. We're also looking into some future professional learning communities. I'll give it back to Kathleen so she can talk to you about the application of elements.
Okay, great. Hey, Suzanne, there was a question from Sharon, and she was asking if you were referring to articulation between non-credit and credit programs. My answer was yes. So we were looking at both things. We were looking at, in some cases, it was aligning non-credit to adult school courses. In other cases, it was aligning courses within the adult schools so that folks could start at the credit level when they got to Palomar College. Okay, so yes, applications of elements. We wanted to take a look at, oh, I see Burr has another question. Exactly how do you monitor career and post-secondary outcomes at each agency? Okay, so that's kind of an interesting, question. One of the things that we're doing right now, we have a research project underway where the college is mapping how many of our students from adult schools transition to the college. We don't have the results of that yet. They're just creating the research for us so that we can look at the successful transitions, but we can also look at the unsuccessful transitions. So when did we have students transition to Palomar at a below credit level, and then what were those students' experiences? So we don't have those results yet, but they are coming soon. So I'm going to pull up a new layout for us. This is a portion of our project here where we were hoping you would be able to chime in, and depending on your level of experience, you may want to chime in on all of these chat pods, or you may want to choose just one or two. So we're posing 3 questions for you. So how might you apply some of the concepts that have been discussed? What are you thinking about curriculum alignment now that maybe you weren't thinking when you first signed up for the webinar? And then tell us a little bit about the curriculum alignment efforts that your consortium has been involved in, and what supports might help those efforts. If you could tell us about your successes and any challenges, any of those things, if you can chat. Susanna and I are going to mute, but we're going to be standing by, and we'll certainly monitor the chat pods. So if you have any questions, you can just type them in either the general chat below if it's a general question, or responding to one of the specific questions in the chat pods up above. Okay, if you're still typing, no problem. You can keep typing. We're going to start to summarize some of the things that you have pointed out here. So the first pod was the third question, how might you apply in your own consortium some of the concepts discussed, and what supports might help your efforts? So Jody and Jacques like the tools, the charts and agreements. Portia talks about her consortium is working on creating bridge courses, but perhaps more curricular mapping would be helpful beforehand. I give that a thumbs up, Portia, because I think if you haven't done the alignment work, it's hard to know where you need bridges. So I think that would be very helpful. Curriculum mapping would be helpful, Sharon says, especially between the adult schools and the adult ed programs, the college adult ed programs, I imagine you mean, Sharon. And then Tom, you're thinking about considering different scheduling options for transition courses. And Sue says it would be valuable to learn why students stop out and then develop strategies to encourage them to continue. Absolutely. Suzanne, do you want to take the second chat pod, summarize that one?
Sure. Okay, looking at the top, we're talking about what are you thinking about curriculum alignment now? And Sylvie, you had mentioned or asked about have we considered using Portfolio to track students' work from one institution to the next? And actually, our consortium is implementing or going through the pre-implementation stages with a product called Simplicity now that can do just that. It can allow students to get on and save their portfolios and have access to it from location to location. And it also is an interaction for some employers and getting resume work, getting a resume together. So it's a kind of a multifaceted, but one feature of it is the portfolio, being able to house it there and move it from institution to institution. Cassia, you said the importance of having a neutral person. That was critical, I think, to the success, because it just put everybody on a very equal playing field, and no one felt like it's our way, everybody has to do it our way. It was equal, and it was a third party saying, this is what I see from a unique perspective, and I think that was really very helpful. And he continues to work as we progress through curriculum alignment, and also he works with the faculty on the bridging, like the creation of the intermediate algebra at our adult schools. And there was a question earlier about, how that was done. Don't we have to go through a curriculum council? And the class is being taught on the adult school campuses, not at Palomar. So that's how that is being handled, but it will be aligned with our course at Palomar. Kristen saying you're working on AESL curriculum between your community colleges, K-12s, and ROPs. Yeah, I think selecting a common set of books can be really useful when possible, and that's what we've been doing with our math program. As far as the standardized textbook set, I'm not sure exactly what our, I know our ESL uses different types between the adult schools and the college. They're not on the same, they do not use at this point the same textbooks. Let's see. can jump in, Kathleen, if you see something.
Yeah, so Trudy, you talk about customization, but you're interested to learn more about models of modularized learning and credit for prior learning and experience. Yeah, that's a really interesting strategy for acceleration. So Marion gave the example of the auto program. And so the auto program example, and it could apply to, I think, more easily to CTE programs if you're able to just chunk the course into units. So let's say you have an 18-week unit or an 18-week course, you can chunk it into if you can, chunk it into 3 6-week units and have those units be interchangeable with a quick start component so that people could start every 6 weeks now instead of waiting 18 weeks to start the next semester. So that's one of the examples that I think we're really looking at and trying to make happen. The credit for prior learning and experience, adult schools have been doing that for a long time in their adult secondary education programs when we're talking about giving folks high school diplomas. Most of us are able to, most of our school boards have allowed us to give credit for prior learning experience. But now what we're talking about with this curriculum alignment is if we have said that these courses are aligned, then whether the course is offered at the adult school or at the community college, it would satisfy the next requirement for them. So again, it's articulation for placement at a particular level. So I see that, Kristen, you all are working on a portfolio, so that's something that that you're thinking about in moving forward, but definitely concerned about how to track students' work when they move from place to place. So then in our third pod here, we were answering the question, if you have an example, tell us about curriculum alignment efforts of your consortium has initiated. What were your biggest successes and what were maybe some of the challenges? So Elaine and Andrea worked with the adult school to align ESL curriculum and assessment. They're now looking at next steps to help students seamlessly transition between programs. Ivan said it would be helpful to know which schools did alignment throughout the state in each program area. That's a really good idea. Could we look at some kind of a repository where people could post the work that they've already done? And then you'd know where to look for examples or how somebody started. With initiating ESL curriculum, as Suzanne said, we didn't use a common textbook. We don't have a common textbook, and so what we started looking at were just the outcomes of each level, and of course any of the WIOA-funded agencies were able to align to CASAS, but our community college, Palomar College, wasn't WIOA funded, so they were not using CASAS at that time. And so what we began to do is look at crosswalks. They were using TABE in some cases, and so we started looking at crosswalks to other assessment and then looking at the descriptors for competency in each of the language acquisition areas. Let's see, so Bird talks about consortium work groups aligned ESL curricula. Good. You're also hosting several college classes on your site, which is wonderful. That's a wonderful strategy. Tom talks about we've engaged in pre and post AEBG curriculum alignment planning sessions with our community college and agrees that it is a difficult though necessary process. Yes. The PLC for this effort continues and is funded by your consortium budget. That's awesome. And so Sylvie talks about there's a struggle that exists in terms of alignment with colleges and adult schools when it comes to ESL. You're experiencing this now, and a few of you have decided to visit each other's classrooms. Yeah, I think that's what it really is, and maybe the biggest outcome that we had was just to start the conversation and awareness about how similar our work really is, because as Suzanne talked about when we were looking at our obstacles, that was one of the obstacles just going in, was the mindset. People didn't understand how similar our work really is. And so, Charlene, you talk about that you've begun preliminary conversations for alignment, and your first step was to have open conversation about challenges and tensions. So that's a great place to start. And then identifying the mutual benefit areas. And Elaine and Chrissy, you talk about, you've articulated high school algebra with one level below transfer credit, so that's also a strategy, and high school composition with English 101. So as Suzanne mentioned, the English area was an area that we had a lot of struggle with, and getting folks to the table. And by allowing people to opt in, we really had that opportunity to say, I mean, people who were very resistant to the process, they weren't ready to do that yet. So I think what we were talking about, and Jody, you had a question of how do you get people to engage. I think one of the things that we have learned is that if you have people opt in and you really celebrate the results, and you get some momentum going, then it becomes easier for other people to join in later. They feel less threatened, more people have gone through it, and so that really worked well for us. And then let's see, Elaine and Andrea offer a citizenship course on the adult schools. The community college offers a course on the adult school campus. And Alice, you have worked on ESL in your consortium and have implemented a number of CTE certification courses. So that's great. Those are wonderful examples. I'm going to have to push us on just in the interest of time. So let me get us back to this frame. And revisiting today's objectives, I see we have 2 minutes left. So what we were hoping we would be able to do here today in the short time that we had together was for you to learn a little bit about our project, have a chance to discuss with others the potential benefits and pitfalls, and explore how you might implement some of the elements in your own consortium. So I hope you had a chance to do that again in the very short time that you had with us. And then I think we have a couple of minutes for questions if you want to type for a little bit. And then I'm going to turn things over to Marion, and you're going to close. Marion, right?
Yes, I am. Thank you both so much. And to all of you all 58 of you who were here today, yesterday we had 59 people registered for this webinar. So to have 58 of you show up is extremely impressive. And I thought the discussion in the chat pods was so rich. I really am thinking that we'll we'll just collect the chat and go through it and create a document that has kind of organizes the suggestions and the questions and the experiences and the challenges and solutions and all that in a way that could be useful for you. And if you would like to get that, I'm not sure actually right now if we're going to be able to post that, so I'm just going to put my email in the chat pod, and you can email me if you want to get a copy of that to review, because there was a lot. That discussion was so rich, and there was so much going by in 3 different window panes, so I can understand if you missed a few things and you want to go back and look. And it's just great to hear all of the things that you're doing. You're all way down the road, and those of you that are getting ideas, I hope you got a chance to get a lot of good suggestions today. So thank you both very much for your presentation. We will have more webinars like this coming up. I don't have one to announce to you right now, but we're shooting to have this time. Actually, we're going to try to have Wednesday from noon to 1 as our regular time for the professional development webinars. and those will be announced in the email that you get from the AEBG regularly. When I close the meeting, which is going to be momentarily, the meeting will be closed. You aren't going to be taken to an evaluation form, which is what you might be used to, but you will receive an email tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. All of those, we're only going to send it to those who attended. So if you attended, you will be receiving an email with a link to the evaluation. And we really, really value your input and your thoughts about how this went and what could have made it better for you. So we'll be looking forward to seeing your input on the evaluation. Thank you all for being here. Have a fabulous rest of the day. And we're going to close out at 2:01. So thank you.